a lot of times women are also not able to explain or understand what their body is going through, and they often misread it or misinterpret it as part of their menstrual cycles. Because if I'm correct in understanding, most of the symptoms that you just shared are somewhere or the other also the symptoms or process of the menstrual cycle as part of it. So one, how can women become more aware about these things? How can they focus more on understanding what their body is saying to them rather than just taking a pill and rushing to work or getting in their daily lifestyle? So that's one part of it. And second is okay, I will come to the second question once we have a response to this.
Sure, yeah. I think it's a great point you bring up. A lot of women struggle to articulate what they're really feeling because we've never been educated properly about our own body. And nobody wants to talk about women's issues openly because it's considered a taboo to talk about menstrual issues and fertility. Anything to do with the women's body is somehow taboo, so much so that we don't even talk about it ourselves, right? And so I would encourage anybody listening to this, especially women, to talk more, even if you start talking about it within your friend circle, to your moms, to your sisters, to your female relatives. Talk about it more. If there is something off with your cycle, if you are in too much pain, if you are bleeding too little or too heavy, if you are unable to even get out of the house when you are menstruating, talk about it, because then you will find out that A, you're not alone, and B, there are ways to manage it, and C, there are ways to heal it, because this is not normal. This is common, but this is not normal to be in so much pain that you can't go on with your daily lives. Yes, it is normal to want to retreat and probably not go to a party that day, and you just want to stay home and relax, or just want to be to yourself because that's what your body wants at that time and you want to honor it. But it's not normal to just cut yourself off from the rest of the world because you're in that much pain, right? And a lot of women don't know how to spot an infection or realize when they should seek medical help, right? So talk about it, read about it. If you don't have the support system to get more informed about it, work with a health coach, work with a fertility specialist, understand how you could be supporting your body better. What can you change in your daily life, whether it is through nutrition or lifestyle changes or stress management, because these are the three things that are the tools to manage any imbalance in our bodies, whether it is PCOS or thyroid or any other chronic condition, which is basically caused by our modern day lifestyles, right? So don't be shy. It starts small. Talk about it with a friend. But don't stick to just like one friend, because that friend may not know everything either, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of misinformation out there about women's health. So do your research. Now we all have access to the internet like never before. That was not the case when a lot of us were much younger and in our teens, and we didn't have a lot of information and knowledge about so many things, and we had to rely on whatever just somebody said to us because we didn't always have access to resources to verify that information,
Mhm.
right? The goal is to feel in control and about making better decisions for your health. Obviously, doctors are very useful and important in their own place, but there is so much that we know about our own bodies. We have intuitive information and knowledge. We have just chosen to switch off those switches because we're so busy, running from pillar to post and just making sure we're getting done with every day the way we've been asked to, right?
Yep.
So taking a step back and figuring out, okay, what doesn't feel good in my body, and why is this happening suddenly if it didn't happen a few years ago, or why has this been going on for 10 years straight? Like, why am I always in pain? I must do something to change that because we're not supposed to live like that.
And you saw slightly touched upon my second part of the question as well. Women's health is still a big taboo in our society. uh, it's like a dust under the carpet, and we just have certain phrases which are used to just joke around with things. For menstruation cycle, we will say it's that time of the month, and we just sort of neglect it, as we just nudge it off, not taking it very seriously. My question is, how can that healthy conversation sort of start being put into our daily lives between different genders, opposite genders, specifically across different relations with your sister, with your wife, with your mother? Because often it's just like, okay, there's a women's health problem happening, and the son or the husband has no idea altogether about it, what the lady of the house is going through. If they did, they would probably be able to extend that extra support, or probably the women can tell them, okay, this is what I'm feeling like, or this support I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Rather, they themselves at time would just nudge it, and they would take in a pill, as you rightly mentioned, and they will get to work, be it their household chores or the professional life out there. So how can this communication gap be really bridged around the opposite genders, and make this conversation more comfortable, so that the required actions can be taken on time, and let alone either a breast cancer case or a uterine cancer case is getting detected at a very later stage when it's too late? So
Yeah.
how can these things be made part of our daily conversations?
Yeah, no, fabulous question and very pertinent. I often think about it myself. The good thing about our generation is that I still think we can make a dent in understanding and awareness and education about these topics. But I think the struggle comes from the fact that there wasn't a lot of open communication about women's health for generations,
Mhm.
right? And it trickled down as something to be not talked about, or something that is dirty, or something that is taboo. And women themselves started looking at their bodies in disgust, or like hoping and praying that they wouldn't get their period that month, or it shouldn't happen when I'm going to Goa, or it shouldn't happen when I'm going for this wedding, and oh my god, this is such a pain. Not realizing that there are many women out there who are praying every month to get a period because of their hormonal imbalances, and they actually celebrate it when it comes, because your period is actually a report card that your body is functioning well, everything is in balance, and your biology is optimal, right? And if something is off there, whether it is pain, or very heavy flow or very light flow, then that is something you want to step back and think about. Like, okay, am I in a lot of stress? Am I not eating well? Am I not sleeping well? Like, what is going on in my life? That comes from a sense of accepting. For women, that comes from a sense of accepting that my body is actually a miracle. It is actually something wonderful to be celebrated, right? Not something to feel annoyed by. And if you are annoyed by your body, then that is a deeper conversation I would love to have with anyone who's interested, right? And for men, that comes from understanding that yes, we're equal, but our biologies are different, right? So a sense of empathy, a sense of compassion, and it extends both ways. I mean, sometimes women need to understand too that men are different. So if a man is like struggling at the end of the day with his energy levels, well, that's his biology. We may be in a cycle of our own cycle, our monthly cycle, where we're feeling very energetic and active and we want to go out and party. But say, my partner doesn't want to, because he has daily cycles, he doesn't have weekly cycles like I do. So I will need to step back and be like, yeah, actually, this is not something he's used to, and he had a stressful day, and well, this is what it is. So empathy and compassion on both sides. Whereas if I'm feeling very, I feel like turning inward, and I just want to be at home in my luteal phase, which is the phase just before your period starts, right? Just before the menstrual phase, like I don't feel like going out and partying or socializing, and I want to cancel the dinner commitment we make to our friends. It's okay. I don't want to be made to feel guilty about it. I don't want to be made to feel bad, or that like I've suddenly become asocial, or that like I don't know how to maintain friendships or blah blah. Like I don't want a whole spiel about it. I just want some understanding at the time. Like this is what my body needs right now. I just want to be to myself, be calm, read a book probably, or watch TV and not do much. So socially, yes, it probably is easier. My concern then is like, how does this translate to the workplace, right? Because, like I mentioned, traditionally, corporate workplaces were designed for men because women entered the corporate workforce only much later. And while many of us are super successful and we climb up the corporate ladder and we've gone on to become CEOs and founders and very high ranking individuals, our biologies are still different, right? And we are constantly made to realize that like it's a bad thing. Like we constantly need to hide it. We constantly need to hide the fact that, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. So I must hide and carry the sanitary napkin to the bathroom with me, right? I must not let anybody know that this is happening. Something so natural and biological is happening to me, because then they will think that I am somehow less equipped to handle today's work day, right? Because there is no compassion, there is no understanding, there's no empathy. It's just like you said, you're equal as women, so you better be equal like every day. And anything different about you, we will use it as a weakness. And that's the thought process that needs to change, right? Women shouldn't feel bad about having children and taking maternity leave, shouldn't feel bad about struggling with chronic conditions or pain which is affecting them, regardless of when and how they choose to heal their body. The first thing we can do at a human level is some sort of empathy and compassion, right? Because a man could have a similarly painful and chronic condition, which is not PCOS, but something else, right? So many women try to hide the fact that, okay, now they've hit perimenopause or now they've hit menopause and they're having these hot flashes. And we've even seen these in like TV shows and movies that women just do not want to express any sort of vulnerability about it because then it will be used against them. So that's the concerning point for me. At a social level, in families, with friends, I think we've come a little bit of the long way. People have started understanding that okay, this is happening, and okay, I know a little bit about this, so I'm just going to either step away or offer any kind of help. I've been fortunate enough to know some wonderful men who don't shy away from asking a female friend if they can help in any way, right? Especially if the female has been vulnerable enough to share that, okay, I'm on my period and, I don't want to talk right now. So it's a sensitive topic. It needs certainly more education and awareness, which is why I think I would love to go back to the point I made about corporate wellness programs, where there is more education and awareness on chronic conditions and hormonal issues that are affecting both genders, right? Why only single out women as people who have health issues? Men have their own health
Yep.
issues too, right? And a lot of times they're not given the freedom to express it or articulate it because somehow that'll be a dampener on their masculinity. And, men are not supposed to express any sort of a weakness. That kind of bias needs to go away because men then just internalize a lot of the stress and emotions house themselves in our bodies, and that's why so many things end up looking like weight issues, but they're actually a combination of so many other things.
Aditi, I believe at times we all want to be in a utopia somewhere where we do talk about equal a balance between men and women out there, but often it just happens that there is an imbalance at times men are at above level, or women are at above level, and we're not able to really get that balance in our society out there. I've not seen that happening so far. I hope it happens in future. Moving forward on this one part where you talked about exercise and nutrition as an important part of managing your health. So how can exercise and nutrition really help in managing PCOS?
Yeah, great question. So with PCOS, the body is constantly, putting out some fire or the other, whether it's too much estrogen, too little progesterone, too much testosterone, a lot of inflammation in the body, and not having the right cortisol response. A lot of women with PCOS struggle with something but we call wired but tired, that not feeling adequately energetic in the morning, but the energy levels like start peaking towards later half of the day, and suddenly wide awake at night and unable to then sleep on time, which then has a cascading effect on the next day, right? So we're constantly putting out some fire or the other because the body is constantly in fight or flight mode. It's constantly stressed. Constantly trying to figure out, okay, what is the next thing that I need to do? And it's just tired at the wrong times and active at the wrong times when it comes to making a living in the modern day world, right? And it's also not aligned with how nature intended us to be. Nature wanted us to be awake and working with the cycle of the sun during the day and rest and recuperate at night when it's dark. Now, I'm not going to get into whether being a morning person or a night owl is better. That's a different topic. But what exercise and nutrition can essentially do is help the body feel safe and nourished and calm, so that it doesn't feel like it's always running away from a tiger, right? Evolutionarily, we feel like, okay, if we're in a state of stress, that means like a tiger is chasing us, and we're constantly running. So when we're in that constant state of flight or fight, the body is not going to prioritize anything except pure survival, right? So things like digestion and reproduction are going to take a backseat. The
Mhm.
body is like, this is not important right now. I just need to live. I don't care whether I'm digesting this kale salad or this aloo paratha right now. I don't even know what I'm eating because I'm just running, right? I don't care what's on my plate, or I just need something quick and easy to keep me running. And so digestion takes a hit, and fertility and reproduction is obviously going to go on the back seat, because unless your body is in a state of calm and feeling safe, it's not going to feel like it's ready to bring another life into the world because it's still running from the tiger,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, what I mean to say with that is that, again, exercise is not a one size fits all. And I often like to say movement instead of exercise, because not all of us need to be running marathons or doing HIIT workouts, right? If we're leading very stressful lives, we need to slow down the pace at which we're running. And so we probably want to do more relaxing activities like yoga or walks around the neighborhood while listening to music or just appreciating nature and the surroundings we have, so that our body can go into a rest and digest state as opposed to a fight or flight mode, right? So if somebody is coming to me with a chronic stress issue and they say, I go to the gym every day without fail, or I'm preparing to run for this marathon, I actually ask them to cut down on such high intensity activity and mix it up with something that's slower and that will relax their nervous system, as opposed to always keeping it on a high and always feel like it's running from something. And once that happens, then we can give the body adequate nutrition, because if we are always popping pills, the pills are chipping away at the vitamins and mineral levels in our body, and it's affecting our energy levels. We're not going to get adequate sunlight anyway if we're working indoors in a cubicle all day, or even if we're working from home. So our vitamin D levels, our B12 levels, everything is much lower than is optimally desired. And the body is in a constant state of inflammation because, again, it's stressed, and inflammation is a response the body produces to protect itself, right? But inflammation also means that the body is not absorbing nutrition from whatever food you are eating. And in any case, if you're eating convenience food or fast food, you're not really eating a lot of nutritious food. You're just eating calories to keep going. You're not helping your body in the long term. So it's a two-pronged approach. It often works best when done together. But if somebody wants to start somewhere, whether something small, whether it is nutrition or food, I often say, like, start slow, start small, start with just, walk around the block in the neighborhood, or start with just adding like one fruit or two vegetables to your diet every day, eating real food, eating whole foods so that your body feels nourished. Like, yes, you have time to do this, you have time to take care of your body, and it feels like, all right, I can take a break from putting out fires or running away from a tiger, and I can actually like do my thing other than just being in fight or flight.
Aditi, you mentioned about having a lot of convenience food coming in our regular diet, and that often leads to feeling bloated or indigestion issues have really, mushroomed in our lives. So, can you help us understand our gut for our listeners? What exactly is our gut work doing when we take in any food, we ingest any food, and how does this feeling of bloating comes across and how it can be cured?
Yeah, fabulous point to bring up. So, the gut is a fascinating microbiome that is now coming into the focus in the last few years, when research and findings have proved that it is connected to our mental health. Nothing is in silo. Like 70% of our serotonin, which is one of the four happy hormones, is produced in the gut. And there is a strong gut brain axis. Think of it as like a transmitter. So whatever's like happening in the gut will get transported to the brain and vice versa, right? So if we're feeling anxious and scared, which is a response coming from the brain, it will often impact the gut too. Like we might get an upset stomach, or we might lose our appetite, or we might want to eat more, depending on how each person's body reacts to that emotion. And similarly, if we're eating fast food, a lot of like sandwiches or food cooked in refined oils, and processed foods laced with a lot of like preservatives, we're not really giving our gut a lot of nourishment. We're giving it a lot of omega 6 fatty acids, which already exist in our body, but we need them in a certain ratio. Omega 3 to omega 6, we need them in a certain ratio, and we always need more of the omega 3s, which is the good side of fatty acids, which is feeding our brain. But if we are constantly eating like fast foods and refined oils and processed sugar and excess salt and what have you, so many chemicals and artificial sweeteners, and just a lot of junk in general, we're not giving our body like probiotics and prebiotics and omega 6. We're getting giving it omega 6s, which in turn makes the body really inflamed, and it's not sending good receptors back to the brain. It's not sending good signals back to the brain. And so the body is again constantly like inflamed, because it's like, okay, what are you giving me? Like, this is not real food. And instead of giving it like whole foods, fruits with digestive enzymes naturally occurring, like papayas and chikus and kiwis and bananas, like humble fruits that are not very glamorous, but do a lot for the body, like especially papayas and bananas. They're not very glamorous, but they do a lot. We're not giving the body that. And we're not eating like our grandparents would, because they would eat like slow cooked food. They would often like sprout the dal to make it easier to digest, or like soak it overnight again to make it softer and easier to digest. But instead, we're going for, processed wheat, which is maida. We're eating sandwiches and processed wheat, which is added sugar already, and then we're lacing it with, I don't know, fake butter or like vegan butter, or like so many things that have come out as options these days, which sometimes can be helpful if made with the right ingredients, but they're often not, because there's just too many ingredients in there that we don't even know if our body recognizes or is able to digest, right? So there's too many things going on in the food industry as well as our lifestyle right now, which are not aligned. So we've lost touch with what our body really likes and what it can really digest. So it's often said that you are what you eat, but if you're speaking with a gut health practitioner, they will say that you are what you can digest.